Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zolotech, and this is the 6 and the 6 Plus. A lot of you have asked me if you should update them to iOS 10 or if they're still relevant, so I'm going to try and answer those for you. And the first thing I want to go over is design. Then we'll cover the battery, iOS 10, speed, and if it's still relevant. So the first thing is design. This is the 6 Plus. This was my daily driver for a year. This was also a daily driver for 2 years, and they both, I've had them both since September 19th, 2014, the day they came out. And they've both been in constant use, at least 1 year here, 2 years here, and they're the 6. Now what I did is, this is running iOS 10.2. This one's running iOS 9.3.5. So that way we can kind of compare the speed and see if they slow down. They both have the same internal specs, but they both should basically behave the same when we're actually using them. They're very close in specs and everything else, so it should be pretty relevant as far as that goes. Now, when we went to the 6S and the 7, we gained a couple different features. So the thing that you don't get on the 6s is you don't get the 3D touch. The screen is not pressure sensitive, so when you push on an icon, you don't get that pressure sensitivity. But for some people that's a good thing, other people it's not. I actually find I use it on the 6S and the 7 Plus regularly. It's just something I've gotten used to. These also don't have the dual speaker of the 7 Plus, so you have a dual speaker, one out the bottom, one here, and it's sort of a dual speaker. It's a little bit louder down here than up there on the 7 Plus, but you don't get that with this phone. You also don't get the water resistance with either of these that the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus have. You don't get the wide color gamut display that you do on the 7 and 7 Plus, and the one thing you do gain here is the headphone jack. On the bottom, you still get the headphone jack, which is something I actually miss quite a bit on my 7 Plus. And one thing we can't forget with the early models is Bendgate. These actually bend fairly easily. Now, I don't have that issue. I'm very careful with my devices, but I know a lot of people that have actually bent these over time just from having them in their pocket or not taking really good care of them. They will bend because they're not as strong as far as the aluminum goes as the newer models. You also get better cameras in the new ones as well, but they're not giant leaps except really for video and some of the dark photos and things like that. If you're going to take them in low light, then it becomes a better camera. Otherwise, you're not missing out too much there. Now, when it comes to the battery life from this to the newer models really hasn't improved. So you're not going to be gaining much in the way of battery. In fact, they actually shrunk the battery in the 6S and then enlarged it again in the 7. So you're really not going to lose anything there. You get a lot more battery life in the Plus, and coming from a 5 or 5S, you'll definitely see an increase with the Plus model. The 6, you're going to get about the same. So just depending on your use, it may be a little bit less or it might be a little bit more. Apple says it's more, but it depends on what you're doing with it. Now, as far as iOS 10 goes, some people are concerned with that. So this one is running iOS 10.2. This is running 9.3.5. Let me show you that. So you can see on the left, we have 9.3.2. I was thinking it was running 9.3.5, but it hasn't been updated to that. And you can also see the model number in the bottom right. The same is true for the iPhone 6 on the right, but this one is running 10.2. Now, both of these phones actually feel pretty fast. With 10.2, you do get a bunch of different features, and the control center here is a little bit different. Notifications are a little bit different, and a lot of people prefer this look. A lot of people prefer this look. Either way, they're equally fast, I think, actually, in my tests. So I thought there was a significant slowdown with 10.0 or 10.1. It seems like 10.2 may have fixed that for some people, but if I open Safari, for example, it opens equally. This is my website, and it seems to be okay as far as opening. Now, if we open the camera, let's do that. They're in different spots here. 9.3 was a little bit slower. Let's do it one more time. And it's a little bit slower. So that's pretty good as well. Let's go back over here, and I think let's open music here. And this is where they made it a little bit different. Close it, open it again. About the same, depending on which time we tried it. We'll open the task manager, a little bit slower on iOS 10.2. So I think it really depends on what you're doing. In specific tasks, especially if you're doing a bunch of them at once, you may see some frame rate drops and some stutters throughout the operating system. But I think overall, they're going to be very comparable to one another as far as speed goes. Now, if you're going to compare these as far as speed goes to the newer devices, I think that's where you would be disappointed. So here's my 7 Plus, and if we do similar tasks on the 7 Plus, like open music, you'll see it's a little bit quicker. Or open music, that was about the same. Just depends what you want. The other thing too, actually, that I didn't mention is the home button. The home button doesn't move on this one either. It's a little bit different. You have a little bit different feel when you click around as well. Let's open the App Store. We'll see which one loads faster. A little bit faster here. Guess I should have opened the App Store here. And I have a ton of updates to do on this phone. You'll see it loaded. It's still not loading properly on this one. Let's try and open that one more time across to all of them. And it's about the same if it's already opened. So it's hard to say which one is going to be much faster than the other, but in certain tasks, when you're doing heavy tasks such as maybe the camera, then you quickly switch to messages, then you go back over to Safari, open Twitter, and jump back and forth, that's where you're going to see a little bit of stutter here and there depending on which one you're using. But you can see they're both fairly fast still. You don't really have issues when opening apps, and things just seem to work okay. We'll open the camera. And we are a little bit faster, but it's not so much faster that I think it would make a huge difference to someone still wanting to use the 6 as their daily driver. I still think it's a decent phone, and it's definitely less expensive now that it's a few years old. So I think for the most part, yes, you can still use it. Yes, you can update it to 10.2. And yes, it will still probably be supported with iOS 11 when we see some of that in June. Apple tends to keep as many iOS versions on these devices as they can as hardware grows older. So they've supported quite a ways back for some time. So I wouldn't worry about that. If you could pick one of these up for a couple $100 or less, I think that would be a great deal, especially if it's one of the larger capacity models. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you found that iOS 10.2 is smooth for you on an iPhone 6? Have you had any bugs or frame rate issues? Or do you prefer iOS 9 and earlier? And are you going to upgrade to the iPhone 7, or are you going to wait for the iPhone 8? That's personally what I would do if I had one of these and I was happy with it. I'd just wait until the fall, around September, until the iPhone 8 comes out. But let me know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.